Hey, how's it going, everybody? Jason here, and in this video, I'm going to be making a bracket of Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes from the 90s. Almost all of the content that I do on my posters and on my different designs and everything come from either 90s TV shows, music, or movies, and not just 90s, I also branch out of those, but every now and then I do like to do something that is a little bit off of the table for design related and a little bit more into music, movies, and TV shows. So that's what I'm doing today. Before we get started, please make sure you are subscribed to support the channel. It really does help me out, and I appreciate it a lot. Okay, so I have a list here of all of the episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and obviously, since we're doing a bracket, we need this to be an even number of items, and we are only going to be focusing on the original series. I'm not going to be doing the revival series or the newer series, the reboot series. I think, what was that, 2017 or 2018, around that time? I only saw the first episode of that. I never saw anything past that. I remember liking it, but I need to go back and actually watch those because I did hear good things about it. But we're only going to be focusing on the original series run, going from the Tale of the Phantom Cab all the way up to the Tale of the Night Shift. So what we need to do here is make that 65 either 64 or 66. Obviously, all we have to do is combine together the Tale of Cutter's Treasure into one singular episode. That way we can have 64 items and we're good to go. Okay, so I've created a bracket here on Challenge. I think that's how you pronounce that. And it's a single elimination, so we are getting down to one singular episode. And I already know what that winner is going to be because I do have a favorite overall episode, but it's going to be interesting to see how I go about choosing the individual episodes from a two-choice option. And I made sure to randomize the seeds to make sure that we have as fair chance as possible for each one of these episodes. Okay, starting off in round one, we have The Hatching versus Apartment 214. Now, this is a very difficult one right off the bat because The Hatching is one of my favorite episodes, and Apartment 214, also one of my favorite episodes. They're both really, really great episodes. However, one of the things that I'm going to be judging this by, and I'm going to try to be as consistent as I possibly can, is Are You Afraid of the Dark is all about being scary, right? So there's obviously an air of mystery to each one of the episodes, and I think that focusing on scary and focusing on horror is going to be the key to determining which one is the best episode. Now, that's not to say that an episode that is a little bit on the deeper side and a little bit more mysterious and not as scary can't also be scary. I'm not saying that at all. But between the two of these, I'm going to have to go with The Hatching because I think The Hatching overall is a little bit on the scarier side. You've got these reptilian creatures that are using humans to kind of bring forth their future domination of all of mankind. And then Apartment 214 is about a ghost that's trapped inside of an apartment building. That is definitely in no way trying to demean the episode. It's a great episode. In fact, it's got some really great scary moments. But overall, I think The Hatching is the winner here. So between the two of these, it's going to be The Hatching simply because it is a scarier story. Okay, next up is The Frozen Ghost and The Room for Rent. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's a clear and obvious winner for me. The Frozen Ghost is a much better episode than The Room for Rent. The Room for Rent is actually one of my least favorite episodes of the entire series. That's including the revival series. I just do not like it. So let's go ahead and go with The Frozen Ghost. We're going to submit the score for that. So that is done. Okay, next up we have the Quicksilver and the Super Specs. Now, I just watched the Super Specs last night with my daughter, and it is definitely one of my favorite episodes. It's actually my dad's favorite episode, so a little fun fact about that. Between the two of them, the Quicksilver is also a very great episode, and they're kind of similar in some ways. But between the two of them, I gotta go with the Super Specs. That one is going to be my favorite one to watch overall, and I think it has, if you haven't seen it, which I'm sure you have if you're watching this video, it has a pretty crazy ending, and it's really, really good. Okay, The Silent Servant and The Jagged Sign. This is going to be kind of like The Frozen Ghost and The Room for Rent. The Jagged Sign is a fine episode. It's a little bit more of a mysterious episode, definitely has a lean in romance, which definitely does not take away from the quality of the episode. But when it comes to these two, The Silent Servant for me is definitely the clear winner. Even if the kids are a little bit on the annoying side, they're definitely not the most annoying in the series though. Okay, The Phone Police and Prisoners Past. This is another no-brainer. I'm actually kind of happy that my least favorite episodes are going up against not the strongest episodes. The Phone Police is definitely a good episode. It's kind of like in between good and great for me, but it's definitely infinitely better than Prisoner's Pass. I've never liked that episode. Not even when I was a kid. I never even liked it. So, okay, we've got The Twisted Claw and The Full Moon. Another no-brainer. Man, this is easy. I think I'm going to have to do another round of this because it's definitely putting my least favorite episodes up with some really good episodes. So I may have to redo this because this is not going the way that I expected. The Twisted Claw is definitely better than The Full Moon, at least in my opinion. Okay, The Shiny Red Bicycle and The Phantom Cab. Now, I'm not a hater of The Phantom Cab. I actually really do like The Phantom Cab, even if it doesn't have the greatest acting in the world. But The Shiny Red Bicycle, right? Like, when you line these up, you know, even if The Phantom Cab is not one of your favorite episodes, it's still a good episode. You know, it's fine. It's got Dr. Vink, you know, it's his first appearance and everything, but The Shiny Red Bicycle is definitely the stronger story and has some really great visuals. So definitely the clear winner between those two. Okay, now this is a little bit more evenly matched. We've got The Fire Ghost and The Unfinished Painting. Now, The Fire Ghost and Unfinished Painting, for that matter, both of them, are episodes that I didn't watch all of that much when I was a kid because I had, you know, certain episodes on VHS tape, whether it was ones that I recorded off the TV or those the SNCC VHS tapes that Nickelodeon put out. So between these two, The Fire Ghost and The Unfinished Painting, I probably watched those about the same amount of times, and I kind of have the same feeling for both of them. Whenever they would come on, I would be like, okay, I'll watch this. It's not that I was excited about watching it, but I was totally fine with watching it. There were some episodes that when I saw that they were on, I would just turn it off because I didn't want to watch it. But The Fire Ghost and The Unfinished Painting are definitely not two of those episodes. But when it comes to what scares me individually, like, it's got, like, The Fire Ghost, it has some good visuals in it and everything, but it definitely, like, that wasn't, like, scary to me. It was more like, ooh, like, that's creepy, you know? The idea that you could be trapped forever inside of a painting, that is far scarier to me. So I'm going to go with The Unfinished Painting for that. It's not all a diss to Jake in The Fire Ghost because that is a great episode. Definitely a really, really good episode. But it's definitely not as scary to me as The Unfinished Painting is. Okay, The Doll Maker and The Carved Stone. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who love The Doll Maker. And I do. I do as well. I like The Doll Maker. The idea of being trapped in something, that is definitely a scary thing for me. Like, that was something that scared me as a kid whenever I was kind of like trapped in a small space or whatever. That to me was really terrifying, and the idea of being trapped in there forever, that definitely scared me as a kid. And The Carved Stone is about this monk who is looking for this stone that allows him to travel back in time. Time travel is cool, but it's not necessarily scary, even though it is a great episode. But between the two of them, I think that I will go with The Doll Maker. Okay, between these two, Watcher's Woods and Jake and the Leprechaun, I'm really trying my best to not read ahead here. So, and I can't scroll all the way up to make sure that I don't see the next two, but I'm really trying my best to not read ahead here because I don't want to think ahead, you know, as much as I possibly can. So between these two, we've got Watcher's Woods and Jake and the Leprechaun. Now, in my opinion, Watcher's Woods is a much better episode than Jake and the Leprechaun. Jake is actually a pretty scary episode in some moments. It has some of the more tense moments of the series. But Watcher's Woods, overall, it's another thing of being trapped, right? You're trapped in the woods, and these campers were trapped in the woods for what, 80 years? That's a long time to be trapped in the woods. And it does get a little bit silly, especially when you finally see the campers and their old ladies and everything. Some of those moments are a little bit on the sillier side, but overall, I think that Watcher's Woods has a much scarier atmosphere to it. I think that Jake and the Leprechaun also has a scary atmosphere, but Watcher's Woods, for me, between the two of them, that's what I would rather watch, is Watcher's Woods rather than Jake and the Leprechaun. Okay, Old Man Corcoran and Badge. This is a no contest. I would say this is our very first no-brainer, because when we had, what was it? The Silent Servant and Jagged Sign. Silent Servant's a good episode. Prisoners Pass and Phone Police. Phone Police is a good episode. Old Man Corcoran is a great episode. And also, I don't want to say too much about the ending, but my gosh, that ending. And then Badge. Badge is I'm not a hater of Badge like a lot of people are. Badge is definitely one of the weaker episodes in terms of the character design of Badge himself, like how he looks and everything. You know, it's a little bit more of like, you know, oh, this is what a scary bad guy looks like. You know, that's kind of like it's kind of like a little kid put that together, like put the design together. I like everybody else. I like all of the other characters that are in the show or in the episode. But between these two, it's no contest. Old Man Corcoran wins like every time up against Badge. That's not even a contest. Okay, The Pinball Wizard and The Quiet Librarian. Now, this is, for me anyway, The Pinball Wizard was an episode that I really, really liked a lot, although I didn't see it a whole lot as a kid because I didn't have it on tape. But The Quiet Librarian is one that I actually had recorded on tape, so I watched that a lot more often. But The Quiet Librarian, I love the fact that you've got that air of mystery to it, that device that she's carrying around. Still have no idea what it's actually supposed to be beyond something that just simply takes your voice away. But The Quiet Librarian and The Pinball Wizard both have an element of horror that scare me a lot, and that is being trapped inside of something, okay? So you've got these kids that are trapped inside of this reading room forever, all right? Until they're rescued. Of course, they're rescued at the end of it and everything, and then, of course, the big reveal at the end of The Quiet Librarian is the fact that she actually once was the librarian, but it still does end on a happy note. The Pinball Wizard, on the other hand, does not. In fact, it's a bit of a slap in the face because you've got the Pinball Wizard, like, he plays the game and he actually does win the game. Even though he wins the game, he still is trapped inside the pinball machine forever. And between those two, when it comes to the end of it, this is difficult actually because I am going back and forth. I love The Quiet Librarian. I love that episode. But between these two, when you put these two up against each other, the Pinball Wizard, I think, actually does take it for me, simply because even though he does, like, you know, it's kind of like a lesson in life isn't always fair. And even though he won the game, he's still trapped inside of that machine forever. And Gary says at the end of the story, when he saw that pinball, he knew he would never get out. That's terrifying. That is terrifying to me. So, okay, next up, The Tale of the Dream Girl and Train Magic. Do we even need to talk about this? Like, I mean, Train Magic, it's a fine episode, right? It's fine. The Dream Girl is, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the highest rated episode on IMDb. I don't think there's a higher rated episode. And it's got a good reason. The Dream Girl is a wonderful episode. It has, in my opinion, I think it's got the best of everything in one episode. It's got mystery. It's got like a little touch of romance, which, you know, like some of the episodes definitely have some of that as well, like as a central theme, especially Sam's stories. And this is a Sam story. So it has those elements, but it also does have, you know, the horror aspect as well. And it kind of ends in a graveyard, and you don't really know what's going to happen, especially if you've never seen the episode before. It did inspire a movie. I think it inspired a movie. I hear that it did, but I mean, you know, just because an episode of a TV show and a movie have a very similar storyline doesn't necessarily mean that it did inspire it. But I think it did. But anyway, I don't want to say what that movie is, but killer episode, killer ending, just great episode overall. Train Magic, it's a movie about a train. Or an episode about a train. And of course, you know, like, you know, there's the idea he could get trapped on a train. The characters are fine. The conductor is actually really good. I enjoy Train Magic, but there's no contest. Putting this up against Dream Girl, it's almost unfair. Like, it's not evenly matched at all. Okay. The Renegade Virus versus the Midnight Ride. Now, the Renegade Virus has always been an episode that I was kind of like fine with, kind of like in between don't like and fine. Whenever it would come on, it really depended on what mood I was in. You know, I was like, okay, you know, maybe I'll watch this. Yeah, like some of the visuals are a little bit silly, but some of the visuals are also a little bit on the creepier side, especially if you imagine yourself being in those situations with the characters, seeing people walking backwards out of a, you know, like out of a classroom, and then going to, you know, try to get your bike, and there's this big giant padlock on it, you know, like it's a mixture of silly and scary. It's kind of like you're in a dream. And like that can be scary. That can definitely be scary. But when it comes to between that and the Midnight Ride, obviously the Midnight Ride is the tale of the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane. It doesn't, from what I remember, at least, doesn't really add too much to the original story, but it still has the original story, and that's stronger, in my opinion, than Renegade Virus. So we're going to go with Midnight Ride over Renegade Virus. Okay, The Dark Dragon and the Curious Camera. Now, this is an episode that both of them actually kind of deal with a little bit of vanity and selfishness, maybe a little bit of greed in there and everything. And I just recently watched both of these episodes with my daughters, and they're both actually really good episodes. I would say that they're very evenly matched with each other. Okay, so that makes the choice very difficult. So between The Dark Dragon and The Curious Camera, which one do you choose? I think that Dark Dragon has overall the better message and the overall better lesson and everything. Curious Camera, you kind of like in both episodes, you kind of know what's going to happen, like in a sense, you know, like early on in the Curious Camera, they establish that whatever the camera takes a picture of, it destroys it. And then the Dark Dragon, you have to battle the Dark Dragon from within, but you don't know that. You don't know that too early on in the episode. So the fact that it just keeps getting worse every single time, the stakes are kind of going up each time. I think that kind of makes the Dark Dragon a little bit stronger than the Curious Camera. They're both really good episodes. So I'm going to go with the Dark Dragon on this one. Okay, the Water Demons and the Dark Music. Now, this is a very difficult one for me because both of these are fantastic episodes. However, when it comes to these, we've got two episodes that I think are actually scary. However, one of them is a little bit better, in my opinion, mainly because of the acting, one, and then also the overall tone of everything. It may be a little bit of a shocker to a lot of people, but I'm actually going to choose the Water Demons on this one because I actually think that the visuals in the Water Demons, at least for me, are a little bit scarier. I've never been freaked out necessarily by the doll in the Dark Music. And then also you've got the bully in there, a little bit on the sillier side. He's kind of like a caricature of a bully, especially with that punch when he punches Andy. Like, I just laugh every time, and laughing at an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode when you're not supposed to kind of takes it out, kind of takes me out of the episode. There's not a moment in the Water Demons, like there are funny moments in the Water Demons where you're supposed to laugh at the appropriate time, but when you're not supposed to laugh, when you see the demons, when they show the Water Demons, like that's just straight up terrifying. And the whole episode has this air of horror that's surrounding it, that you feel like you're being watched all the time by the Water Demons themselves, even if you're not. And that to me is much more terrifying than the Dark Music. So now, not at all to besmirch the Dark Music. I love the Dark Music. Great episode. But between the two of them, got to go with the Water Demons. Okay, the Dangerous Soup and the Long Ago Locket. Now, this one is a little bit of a no-brainer for me. I'm going to go with the Dangerous Soup on this one. The idea of, you know, this statue going around and like showing people their worst fears and everything, even if it is an illusion, it doesn't really matter, right? You're still seeing it. But between those two, like that, and plus it's a Dr. Vink episode. Nev Campbell is fantastic in this episode as well. The ambience of this episode I've always really liked. I love the design of the restaurant. Really the overall design of the episode just overall. How many times have I said overall? But The Long Ago Locket is also a really good episode. I don't hate on it as much as a lot of people do. It is definitely more of a historical drama with an air of mystery to it, more so than horror. But even when I was a kid, one of the things that I've always found kind of scary is the idea of, going back in time and being trapped there, having no way of getting back. That is scary, but that's not necessarily what the episode focuses on. The episode is focusing on, our main character helping this man from the past get to where he needs to go. It doesn't at all mean that it's a bad episode. It's actually a really good episode. But between the two of them, Dangerous Soup is definitely scarier, and an overall better episode in my opinion. Okay, The Lonely Ghost and The Hungry Hounds. I don't really know what to say here because The Lonely Ghost is the obvious winner in this round. And I'm actually glad that it went up against something like The Hungry Hounds, which I don't hate. I don't hate The Hungry Hounds. I just don't think that it's particularly scary. So I think I'm going to go with that one. The Lonely Ghost is the clear winner, in my opinion, on that. And then let's go to A Door Unlocked and The Mystical Mirror. Okay, now this one's going to be hard, okay? Because both episodes I consider to be great episodes. A Door Unlocked and The Mystical Mirror. What do I do here? Okay, let's analyze both episodes. Okay, let's start with A Door Unlocked. Door Unlocked is obviously great already because it's got Sardo. Is there a bad episode with Sardo in it? I don't think there is. So you've got this kid who buys this door that can see into the future. Okay, and every one of the episode is great. I can't think of anybody that annoys me. There's not any bad acting, like relatively bad acting. The idea of seeing into the future is cool. And the idea of, there's another set of a door that, kind of allows you to pass through and everything. So we're definitely dealing with a little bit of like a time travel type of situation. Ultimately, what it ends up to is he has to save this girl from a fire. Okay, so that is what the episode is ultimately building up to. So it has a lot of mystery to it. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a scary episode. I know that there are a lot of people who love this episode out there. I do too. But when it comes to scariness, like actual horror, I don't think A Door Unlocked has it. It's got a lot of mystery, but I don't know about scary. Mystical Mirror, on the other hand, has some pretty scary visuals. When you find out that Miss Valenti is not who she claims to be, and you see what she actually looks like, that's pretty scary. And then the painting that's on the wall that shows what she really looks like, also very scary. And then also the idea of being, of like these girls missing because they were turned into dogs and being used in these magical rituals. The idea of that is much scarier to me than a little door that sees into the future. Doesn't at all take away from A Door Unlocked. It's a great episode, but Mystical Mirror is the one that has it for me. These two episodes are evenly matched in terms of the quality. The overall quality of the episodes, both are fantastic episodes. But I think that Mystical Mirror is scarier, so it gets the vote. Okay, The Unexpected Visitor versus The 13th Floor. Now, this one is a little bit on the obvious side for me. Unexpected Visitor is a good episode. It's not a great episode. It's a good episode. I know a lot of people really hate on it and everything, but the idea of like communicating with aliens and everything, I particularly have never really found aliens to be scary. I've also never seen, what's that movie? Fire in the Sky. Never seen that one, but I've heard that will change your entire outlook on aliens. Maybe I should look at it. But when it comes to this, it's also very interesting because I just now realized that these are both alien stories. The 13th Floor, I think, has the vote for me because I really love everything about this. The set design is so cool of the toy factory. I almost said the candy factory, but the toy factory set design is so cool. I love everything about it. And you don't really see the end coming. There's a couple of little hints and everything, but there's nothing obvious that says, what this is. And plus, you don't ever see either of these two worlds and everything, but between the two worlds, I would want to see the world where they talk about in the 13th floor, even more so than the unexpected visitor, because, you know, like when he says, you know, when Leonid, the character, says you can fly like a bird, you can see through to other worlds. Like, I want to see that world and what it looks like. To me, that's more appealing to me. Okay, so between the Tale of the Night Shift and the Dream Machine, difficult. Actually, more difficult than you're probably expecting, because the Night Shift, of course, is a great episode, one of the scarier ones in my opinion. And then you've got the Dream Machine, which also has some really good scary visuals. So between these two, like, okay, you've got one like a typewriter that makes things come true in somebody's dream. And then you've got the Night Shift, which is about a vampire coming to a hospital. Between these two, I think the scarier episode, I don't know, it's difficult actually, because now that I'm thinking between them, I don't know. I think I have to go, I think I kind of have to, I don't know, it's difficult. It's really difficult. I'm going to go with the Dream Machine. That's kind of what my gut is. I know I just kind of committed blasphemy just now in Are You Afraid of the Dark lore, but let me just explain this. The idea that you can type something on a typewriter and make somebody dream something, like, there's nothing to say that you can't keep doing that over and over and over again, right? So for the Night Shift, you've got this vampire, and they defeat the vampire, right? The vampire's done, dead, over with. The episode ends on a happy ending. It's all good. The Dream Machine, if you held this in your possession, then you could give somebody the most terrifying nightmares every night for years, and maybe even for the rest of their life, if you're that vindictive. And they'll never know where these nightmares are coming from unless you tell them or unless you destroy it or whatever, right? So the idea of the Dream Machine is scarier to me than the Night Shift, because you can just cause unending, unimaginable horror for somebody with this typewriter. And the Night Shift, the vampire is defeated and the episode's over. So I'm going to go with the Dream Machine. Okay, now here is a very difficult one. The Nightly Neighbors and the Midnight Madness. Now, a lot of people, Midnight Madness is their favorite episode. In fact, if you look at some blog articles, it says that the Midnight Madness is the absolute best episode of the entire series. And while I do think that there are some really excellent points to be made there, it's funny too, because these are both vampire stories. The Nightly Neighbors, in my opinion, has better visuals, and also the characters are a little bit more entertaining. I find the kids to be a little bit more entertaining in the Nightly Neighbors. The scene where they're trying to get into the basement, and one of the Bronze comes downstairs, and they know, they obviously know which one is in there, but there's that, when you're trying to hide from your parents or trying to hide from someone when you were a kid. This episode really taps into that very well. And I think that between the two, the Nightly Neighbors has it just slightly for me, mainly because it's one of my dad's favorite episodes, and we always say "eats blood from the hospital." So we always say that. We still quote it to this day. So I'm going to go with the Nightly Neighbors. All right, so I only have 5 more decisions to make on this round, so I'm actually going to finish this out today, and then I'll come back and pick up tomorrow and record the rest and hopefully get it up to you by Friday. Okay, between the Chameleons and the Dead Man's Float. Now, a lot of people are just going to automatically go to the Dead Man's Float on this one. I think that the Chameleons is slightly scarier only because of the fact that the chameleon wins in the end of the episode. All right. The Dead Man's Float, the ghost is defeated. That thing is straight up terrifying. It's very, very scary. I will give you that. The visual of that is very scary. Although that is the only really scary moment really in the series, is kind of that finishing scene, what it all builds up to. Now, what it all builds up to is very good. It is very scary. The Chameleons, I would say, doesn't necessarily have a lot of scary moments, but what it ends with is actually a scarier thought. the fact that the chameleon, like we think as the audience that the chameleon lost, well, it actually won. And that's scarier to me, because like, not just because it has a scary ending or a negative ending or whatever, the hero didn't win, but the fact that the chameleon actually did win and is going to continue the plan dressed up as, or like imitating Sharon, I believe it is, imitating Sharon going forward, that's scarier to me than Dead Man's Float. So I'm going to go with the chameleons. I know I'm committing all kinds of Are You Afraid of the Dark blasphemies here, but I got to go with the chameleons just because I think that the idea of that happening is scarier than what happens in the Dead Man's Float. Okay, The Closet Keepers and The Magician's Assistant. Now, this one is a little bit of a no-brainer. Magician's Assistant, I consider to be a good episode. Closet Keepers, like, I'm kind of fine with. Like, I could kind of take it or leave it. I love the idea of, human beings being on display for aliens. That is interesting to me. And if any of the characters had not made it out and they were trapped in there forever, or at least the episode kind of hints at that, like trapped in there forever. It's been a while since I've watched it, and I do remember, I think it does have a positive ending. But The Magician's Assistant, to me, overall, is better written, better performed, a little bit of a better story. So I'm going to go with Magician's Assistant. In fact, it's been a long time since I've watched this episode. I need to go back and watch it again. It's also been a while since I've seen Closet Keepers. Okay, so The Vacant Lot and The Manaha. Come on. Vacant Lot all the way. All the way. Not even close. Manaha, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Manaha is the worst episode. It's the worst episode of the original series. The Vacant Lot is like top 3 for me, at least. Not even close. And doesn't even warrant an explanation. Okay, Laughing in the Dark versus The Final Wish. We've got another one. The Final Wish is a good episode, but it's not Laughing in the Dark. Come on. Like, what can I say about Laughing in the Dark that hasn't already been said? Okay. Really creepy imagery, really creepy vibe, atmosphere, ambience. Everything about Laughing in the Dark is creepy. Even if it does have a positive / happy ending, it kind of does have that little twist at the end, which you kind of suspected, but if you didn't know, like if you didn't have that curse of knowledge, you have no clue, but that's going to be difficult between Vacant Lot and Laughing in the Dark. That's got to be hard for me because those are fantastic episodes. Okay, The Prom Queen and The Crimson Clown. So, The Prom Queen and The Crimson Clown, both are fantastic episodes. However, I'm going to go with The Prom Queen on this one, and a lot of that has to do with nostalgia. I definitely watched it more than The Crimson Clown. The Crimson Clown is a very good episode in terms of learning a lesson and not being so selfish, and it actually has some really great moments as well. But I really do enjoy the characters in The Prom Queen. I think there's a really good balance of all those characters, and there are some legit scary moments in The Prom Queen, just like there are in The Crimson Clown. But The Prom Queen, I think that it wins mainly because of the ending, right? It has this great ending that you really don't see coming. And I'll just leave it at that. Just really, really great episode overall. Really good ending. Okay, The Sorcerer's Apprentice and Cutter's Treasure. Now, I am a little bit biased on this because The Sorcerer's Apprentice is an episode that I watched far more than Cutter's Treasure. In fact, Cutter's Treasure didn't even interest me when I was a kid. I found it a little bit more interesting when I grew up and kind of watched it as an adult. A little bit more interesting, but it's not an episode that is like, oh yes, absolutely. The Sorcerer's Apprentice, on the other hand, is an episode that, like, between the two, if I had to choose between these two episodes, it's Sorcerer's Apprentice. There's no way that that's not winning. Even though, like, it definitely has some of the weaker moments. Some of the elements of the storytelling are not quite all there. The buildup isn't quite all there. But it still is a good episode overall. And in my opinion, better than Cutter's Treasure. Okay, next up we have Guardian's Curse and the Captured Souls. Now, I consider Guardian's Curse to be a good episode, and I consider Captured Souls to be a great episode. So, Captured Souls is definitely going to be the winner on that one. The set design, the location of the Captured Souls has always been so cool to me. I loved the house, the like on the water and everything. His room, to me, was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. You know, press a button and all these really interesting, cool things come out. Very cool stuff. The Guardian's Curse, also a really good episode. And I think that the overall like atmosphere of this, whenever that mummy is moving around, like it's so terrifying. And it does have a really solid ending. Both episodes have a very solid ending. But if I had to choose between them, Capture Souls is definitely the winner for me. It has that slight edge on it of nostalgia for me personally, so that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, C7 and Locker 22. Now, I am not a hater of C7. A lot of people are. It is definitely not what I consider to be a scary episode, okay? But neither is Locker 22. Locker 22 is not really a scary episode either. It deals with, like, both episodes. It's very interesting. Both episodes deal with helping a ghost with something that happened in the past. And it's very interesting that this is kind of matching up these brackets this way. But between the two of them, I would say that the one I enjoy watching more is probably Locker 22, but C7 has a very solid story. So that's difficult. This is really difficult. I don't know. I really don't know. I would say that they're both on par with each other. But okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of cheating here. Let's think ahead, okay? Between the Captured Souls and C7, I'm going to go with Captured Souls. Between Captured Souls and Locker 22, also going to go with Captured Souls. So it's not like anything has a definitive edge here. So it doesn't really matter which one I choose because both of them are going to be knocked out when it comes to Captured Souls. So I'm going to say for the sake of nostalgia, I'm just going to say Locker 22. I have a little bit more of a grounding with Locker 22, so I'm going to go with that one, even though I know it's going to get knocked out. Okay, The Ghastly Grinner and Station 109.1. These are fantastic episodes, both very evenly matched with each other. So, The Ghastly Grinner, of course, classic. Great episode. Really great moments, and the idea of the Ghastly Grinner kind of taking over everyone. It has that air that I wish the Renegade Virus had. So, like, you kind of feel like you're trapped inside of a dream, but it's really happening. Although, with the Renegade Virus, it's all happening inside of his head, right? If I'm remembering that correctly. Does that... Oh, wait, no, it does actually cross over into the real world. But with the Ghastly Grinner also happening in the real world, and to see, you know, your loved ones, your parents and your friends, and not only that, but people like the bus driver and everything, like those people being taken over and turned into these, you know, zombie type of creatures by the Ghastly Grinner, that's pretty scary. 109.1, also pretty scary. You know, dealing with death and, you know, funerals and hearses and caskets and, you know, helping those in the afterlife who can't find their way, you know, to their eventual home. Like, they're both very, very solid episodes, and I really, like, even after analyzing that and discussing it, I don't know. I really don't know. It's like a coin toss. It really is like a coin toss. I don't know which one to pick between Ghastly Grinner and 109.1. I would say Ghastly Grinner is very interesting because I love the sequence when he's drawing, when he's finishing the comic later, and you kind of hear what's happening, but you don't see what's happening. That adds a layer of mystery to me. 109.1 is good because of the aspect of helping these ghosts find their way home into the afterlife. Although 109.1 kind of borders on silly just a little bit, and Gilbert Gottfried definitely does not help with that, even though he's great in it. I don't know. I think I'm going with Ghastly Grinner. I think Ghastly Grinner, to me, is the scarier episode, so I'm going to go with that. Okay. I feel relieved now that I've made a decision. Okay, The Whispering Walls and The Bookish Babysitter. Bookish Babysitter. This is the last one that we're going to be doing today. Okay, so The Whispering Walls, I consider to be a good episode. You never really know what's coming next in this house that Raymond is in. Master Raymond, I believe, was his character name. You never really know what's happening here, and there's this air of mystery to it. And you don't know what's going to happen next. Bookish Babysitter, the rules are kind of established a little bit on the earlier side. However, there's one thing that the Bookish Babysitter has that the Whispering Walls doesn't even come close to having. Well, two. I'm going to say two. One is Belinda. Belinda is one of the greatest characters in the entire series run, and we only saw her one time. She was a great character and played by an actress who is larger than life, on the same level with Sardo and Dr. Vink. I think she belongs up there, and she should have gotten more stories. So that's one thing that the Whispering Walls doesn't have. Another thing that the Whispering Walls does not have is that freaking ghost that is coming down the hallway. That is one of the scariest images that I can remember. It scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So the ghost floating down the hallway, just terrifying. So I'm going to go with The Bookish Babysitter. All right, that's it for me for now, and the next one begins now. Okay, here we are, day 2 of 2, and here I am magically shaved in the later part of the video, but we are going to continue ranking our Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. Now that we have round 1 completely done, now we're on to round 2. And this should not take nearly as long, at least I don't think it should. Maybe I can just, not yap so much. But anyway, so let's go ahead and start here at the top. We've got The Hatching and The Frozen Ghost. Now, I do really like The Frozen Ghost quite a bit, actually. I don't think it's one of the strongest episodes of the entire series, but it definitely has one of the most well-known quotes of the series, which is "I'm cold." And it is kind of creepy in a sense, but I've never really found this episode to be necessarily scary. The Hatching is definitely the scarier of the episodes for me, or between these two at least. So this one goes to The Hatching. Okay, so we'll submit that one. Okay, between the Super Specs and the Silent Servant, for me, this is no contest. The Super Specs is definitely the clear winner on this one. Silent Servant is a very good episode, but it's not as good as the Super Specs. So that's going to be interesting to have The Hatching and the Super Specs going head-to-head right there. Okay, the Phone Police and the Twisted Claw. So I really like the Phone Police. I think it has a really cool vibe overall on the episode. The idea that you can be, thrown into jail for abusing the phone and just be left there, and like with Billy Baxter, the fact that he was there for, years and years and years, and you never see what he looks like. That's very interesting to me. That adds a lot of mystery to the episode. And I've always really liked the Phone Police. However, the Twisted Claw, it's kind of a difficult decision, actually, because I really like, I think that they both kind of give off the same vibe. But I think because I've seen the Twisted Claw so many times, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning toward the Phone Police on this one. I really do think that between the two, if I had the choice to watch which one or the other, the Phone Police, for me, it's a little scarier in the sense that, you could be thrown in jail, never to be heard from again, feeling completely helpless. You can only, your phone in your cell can only have incoming calls, and, no one ever sees you again. To me, that's a little scarier than this claw, that's magical claw, where it makes your wishes come true, but something bad happens. I don't know. So I think between the two of those, it might be a little bit unpopular, but I'm going to go with the Phone Police on that one. And it also will help just to kind of change things up, make things a little bit more interesting when we get to round 3. Okay, between these two, the Shiny Red Bicycle and the Unfinished Painting. This is a little bit harder than I would have anticipated, actually, because both episodes are really, really good. However, I think that the visuals in the Shiny Red Bicycle are actually scarier than the visuals in the Unfinished Painting, because Unfinished Painting has the notion that you could be trapped forever inside of this painting. That's definitely a scary thought. But the Shiny Red Bicycle has these great visuals along with it. And like, I always was scared when I was a kid of, like riding my bike and then getting caught up in this water and dying in the water and everything. And there's something about in these episodes when they go back to revisit, like, where somebody died, I always found that to be really, really creepy. So I'm going to go with the Shiny Red Bicycle and the fact that, it's one of my dad's favorite episodes. So obviously I'm a little bit biased there. Okay, the Dollmaker and Watcher's Woods. I consider these to be probably pretty evenly matched with each other. So it might be a little bit difficult, but if pressed, between the two of them, I would definitely I would rather watch Watcher's Woods between the two of these, mainly because the atmosphere of the episode, it's a little bit scarier for me. Just kind of being lost in the woods and never finding your way out, and being lost in the woods for 80 years, like the original campers were. So I'm going to go with that one. The Dollmaker is a great episode. It really is. But I think Watcher's Woods has a slight advantage. You know what? Watcher's Woods has Jewel State. Enough said. We'll just go with that. All right. Old Man Corcoran versus the Pinball Wizard. Okay. Now this is hard. This is really hard. Okay. Old Man Corcoran is one of my top favorite episodes. And the Pinball Wizard, it's not necessarily one of my top favorite episodes, but I recognize it as a great episode. It's really, really great. Although it can get a little bit hammy in some parts, it can get a little bit silly. So I think that's where Old Man Corcoran definitely has the edge on it. There isn't a moment in Old Man Corcoran where things feel a little silly. I can't think of anything, as a matter of fact. All of the kids do a really good job in the episode. It has a killer ending that is just awesome. It's almost unparalleled when it comes to the rest of the episodes in the series, so I'm going to go with Old Man Corcoran. The Dream Girl and the Midnight Ride. Okay, so The Dream Girl is widely considered to be the greatest episode, or at least the highest rated episode on IMDb. As far as I can remember, I think that's right. And then pairing it up against the Midnight Ride just kind of feels unfair, because obviously it's clear that the winner is The Dream Girl. But that's not at all to say that Midnight Ride is a bad episode. It's actually a really good episode. But the fact that it kind of suffers from not having a completely original story. It's borrowing from a myth or a legend, or I guess, an already previously crafted story as its foundation. So it kind of suffers a bit from that. Not necessarily, that doesn't make it automatically a bad thing, but Dream Girl just is a little bit more original in its approach. And also, even when you're watching the episode and you know what's going to happen at the end, the clues are not overt. They're very subtle. So I think that Dream Girl definitely gets that one. Okay, the Dark Dragon and the Water Demons. Okay, both are episodes having to deal with, well, not necessarily greed. It's more of like, not believing in yourself and wanting to be better, taking shortcuts, basically. Water Demons, I guess you could kind of argue that it's that way. Like it does involve thievery, and everything. But between the two, which one is the better episode? Which one is scarier? Let me think about this for a second. So Dark Dragon, the scare comes from the idea that you have to battle this dragon from within yourself, and then at that point, that's when you bring out the best in yourself. However, at the end of the episode, Keith goes back to being his normal self, and the lesson on that is you're fine. You're fine to begin with. And then the Water Demons, you've got an episode where you're a grave robber basically, and the Water Demons are always going to be coming after you. They don't let you sleep. However, the horror does also end in this episode, because once everything is given back, then the Water Demons go away and everyone can rest peacefully. So both episodes do end up having a happy ending. But the scarier of the two, I'm going to go with the Water Demons, because I think that the overall vibe of the episode is a little bit scarier, even though you've got some great moments in the Dark Dragon. that can be equally as scary. But I think that overall, the Water Demons just kind of has a little bit of an edge on the Dark Dragon. Okay, the Dangerous Soup and the Lonely Ghost. Now, okay, I'll just go ahead and say this. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'll go ahead and give an analysis on this. So the Dangerous Soup, one of my favorites. One of my favorite episodes. Absolutely. Definitely top 5 maybe for me. If not in the top 5, definitely in the top 10. Really great premise. Dr. Vink is in it, which is fantastic. Really just a fantastic episode. Lonely Ghost, on the other hand, has a villain that I think is one of the best villains in the entire series. And of course, it's not the ghost. We're talking about Beth here. Beth is a great villain. The actress that played her just totally killed it. So she was amazing. But between the two of these, I got to go with Lonely Ghost, simply because like there's always been something about that house that they chose for the location of the shooting of this episode. It's also got a very sentimental vibe to it, which I directly relate to. It's got a really good balance of sentimentality and horror. Like, I do find the episode to be equally good in storytelling and good in scares. So I'm going to go with Lonely Ghost on that one. Not at all to take anything away from the Dangerous Soup, because I love the Dangerous Soup. Okay, the Mystical Mirror and the 13th Floor. Now, the Mystical Mirror, of course, I'm gonna go ahead and declare it the winner. But let's go ahead and do like a small analysis. So the Mystical Mirror, again, talking about Miss Valenti and her shop and everything. I think that's a very interesting character, and the actress that played her did a really good job with it. And of course, we've got the girl that played Beth. Beth, is that right? No, not Beth. Amanda from The Lonely Ghost. She is in the Mystical Mirror. So that's going to be interesting, knowing that Mystical Mirror is going to go up against Lonely Ghost here in a little bit. But the 13th Floor is also really good. The visuals are fantastic in both episodes. I love both, but between the two, if I had to choose, I would go with Mystical Mirror, just because it has, like as the name says, it has much more of a mysterious vibe to it than the 13th Floor. 13th Floor, you don't know what's going on. They do reveal it about in the middle of the episode. Like, there's 2 different twists in the middle. Like, the first one, is right at the middle of the episode, and then the one at the very end, you find out what's going on at the very end. Mystical Mirror, there's definitely a lot of things that you think could be happening, but you're not really entirely sure until everything is kind of wrapped up in the final scene. So I think that between the two, we're going to go with Mystical Mirror. Okay, the Dream Machine and the Nightly Neighbors, both interesting. Both of them are involving vampires. Dream Machine is obviously not, the vampires is not central to the storyline, but, Nightly Neighbors is. But between the two of these, I think the Dream Machine is a really good episode. I don't know if I would classify it as a great episode necessarily, but it's a really good episode. But the Nightly Neighbors, for me, it's blood from the hospital. So I just can't. I can't betray the vampires, and I can't betray that ending. That ending is so unexpected, completely out of left field. You think everything's okay, and it's just not. Okay, the Chameleons, the Chameleons and the Magician's Assistant. So between these two, this is pretty evenly matched for me. I like both of these episodes, but I don't love either one of them. In fact, this may be a little bit unfair to Magician's Assistant, but I'm not as familiar with it. I don't remember how it ends. So I think I'm going to have to put the Chameleons, simply because I just recently watched it. And to me, it's one of the better endings. It's not necessarily one of the best episodes overall, but it definitely has a very strong ending. And I really like this ending. So I need to go back and watch Magician's Assistant. Who knows, if I go back and watch it, it could change my mind on it. But for now, I'm just going to say the Chameleons. Okay, The Vacant Lot and Laughing in the Dark. This is why I don't look ahead, because I had no idea that these two were going up against each other. Oh boy. Okay, it's time to be completely honest here. Okay, we'll start with Vacant Lot. Vacant Lot is one of my favorite episodes. Top 3. I'm not going to say what my top 1 episode, my top 1 favorite episode is. Although at this point you may have figured it out, but we'll see. We'll see how things play out. Vacant Lot, I think, has one of the best lessons, one of the best characters, in the entire series, and you don't know what all is going to happen from one moment to the next. There's definitely, like, you know, there's a line of things that are kind of established early on, but there's definitely an air of mystery to things that you don't know what things, like, you don't know what's going to happen. Man, I'm like so torn here. This is awful. I think this is my first true dilemma. Okay. And you've got Marie, which is a great character. Okay. I had no idea this was going to be so hard. Okay. Okay, let's stop analyzing Vacant Lot because I'm still not convinced. Laughing in the Dark. Of course. That's like probably the most iconic episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark in the entire series? Zeebo the Clown, come on. It has everything that I loved as a kid. You know, fun houses, theme parks, roller coasters. I even, like, I don't remember ever being scared of clowns necessarily. So this episode, I don't know if it necessarily scared me, but it definitely entertained me. And what was cool about this is that you never saw the clown coming after Josh, and that added a lot of mystery to it. That's one thing I always really appreciated about this show, is that they didn't always show you the monster. Like that episode of Doug about the abnormal, when he says, you know, like he's so scared of what this thing looks like until he finally sees it, right? And I think that Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of shrouds all of that mystery in a really good way. They don't do it with every episode, but they do it with a good amount of episodes, and Laughing in the Dark is definitely one of those. Now, I have to make a decision. Okay. Forget about the rest of the episodes. Let's look at the ending, okay? The ending of Vacant Lot, you know, she learns her lesson. Everything turns out just fine for her. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad episode at all. Far from it. It's always good, you know, when kids are learning the lesson that they need to be learning. And, you know, like, I love the fact in the Vacant Lot that her thing at the end of it, you know, like, her lesson that she learned, and she even said it out loud. Her sister said, you know, what happened to Marie? And then, what's the girl's name? Catherine. Catherine says, I think she wanted too much. And then she follows that up with, and I wanted what counts. That is such a great message to end with. Like, it's really, really good. Something you never see in a show of like made for teenagers. Even back then, that was considered like a little bit too wholesome. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of lean towards it, because, you know, having, you know, grown up and everything, like I was able to relate to that. Even when I was a teenager, I knew that was a good message to be sending to kids. Even though I wasn't a teenager when this episode came out, but still, like, you know, I was pretty close. Knowing that was a good message to send to kids. Laughing in the Dark, of course, you know, he gives Zeebo his nose back. He gives him some cigars, which is kind of like, where'd you get the cigars from? You're a kid. But then the reveal at the end is that, you know, the carny was Zeebo. And you kind of, like, the interesting thing about that is that it's a twist that doesn't feel like a fully mind-blowing twist, because you kind of suspected it the whole time, especially in the picture of the newspaper. So I don't think it was a twist that was set up very well. So you know what? I'm just going to go with the Vacant Lot. Like, I'm sorry if I committed Are You Afraid of the Dark blasphemy here, but between the two, if I had to watch them, I mean, obviously they both have their place. But I think the Vacant Lot is overall better than Laughing in the Dark, and you can disagree. But it's just what I think. It's just what I think. Okay, now let's go to the Prom Queen and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Okay, now this to me is a no contest. It is definitely the Prom Queen. I will go ahead and give it the point so we can establish that early on. The Sorcerer's Apprentice is a good episode, I think. I think it's better than what people give it credit for, actually. It has some really good, strong, scary visuals in the entire episode, but the prom queen has the better story. And that's is it Chris Stuckman? I think Chris Stuckman talks about, like, you can have this fantastic movie, you can have great visuals, you can have great characters, you can have great moments in the entire movie, but what matters more than anything else, the bedrock, the foundation of everything, is the story. Is it a good story? That's what matters more than anything else. The prom queen, in my opinion, is the better story. Okay, the captured souls in Locker 22. This one is a little bit easier for me as well. Locker 22 versus C7. I obviously had to go through a long thought process to arrive at Locker 22 over C7, but in this one, it's going to be a much shorter process. The captured souls wins for me because, like, I think Peter is a very interesting character. The actor that played him was fantastic. The set design of the entire episode was really cool. The location shooting was cool. The use of the mirrors and how they photograph the mirrors, just an awesome episode overall. There's a couple of things where it's like, well, that seemed a little bit too easy. But, you got to remember these are, 23, 24-minute episodes, and they got to wrap everything up in a very short amount of time. So I don't knock Are You Afraid of the Dark for resolving things a little bit too quickly. Dark Dragon, I'm looking at you. Okay. Ghastly Grinner and the Bookish Babysitter. This is a difficult one, actually, because both of them are larger than life characters that only appeared one time. So Ghastly Grinner and Bookish Babysitter. So Ghastly Grinner obviously has some really good moments of surrealism where everyone's kind of being taken over by the Grinner, and like, your everyday life is so upended because the people that you knew and even people that you don't know, like the bus driver, are being taken over by this character. And you also, like I said earlier, when what's his name? His name isn't Jesse, is it? Is it? I don't remember. I don't remember what the character's name is. But when he's finishing the Ethan, that's it, Ethan. When he's finishing I can't talk at all. When he's finishing the comic book, I love the idea that you can hear all of the different things that are happening inside the comic book, and you see them in the comic book panels, but you don't actually see into this world. That is a very interesting choice, probably for budgetary reasons. They probably couldn't film it, but it adds so much mystery to what's really going on between him when he's fighting the Grinner. I think that really adds a lot, because there's a lot that you don't see, and in Bookish Babysitter, you see everything. You see everything that's happening. Ricky gets pulled into the book, and he has to finish the entire book, within the confines of the actual book itself. He's got to finish the story out. And it's not necessarily say that one is better than the other, but I think Ghastly Grinner has to win on this one because of it's left up to your imagination what's actually going on. You see these snapshots in the panels, but you don't actually see what's happening inside of the comic book, even though something is happening inside of the comic book. It's very interesting. I think both of them teach interesting lessons. Bookish Babysitter definitely, it gave Ricky a thirst for reading that he didn't have before, and I always think that, I think that's a very good thing, especially coming from someone who had no passion for reading when I was a kid, and now has a passion for reading, learning, and studying, and just making just growing my mind. I definitely appreciate that, but I think Ghastly Grinner has it for scariness. Okay, now we are on to round 4, and I've got to get some water. Okay, so this will go a lot faster because we have the hatching and the super specs. Oh, great. Oh, man. Okay. Hatching and the super specs. What is my criteria? My criteria here is that this is supposed to be a show that's scary, but also a show with a really good story. The Hatching is one of my top 5 favorite episodes. And they both have, okay, well, one of them has a clear ending that, you know, that it's not, that it's a clear, not happy ending. The other one is a lot more ambiguous, way more open to interpretation. But between the two of these, if I had to pick one, which one would I pick? I'm trying to not let the fact that this is my dad's favorite episode influence me in any way. Super Specs has amazing, like really good wardrobe, set design, music. The music is so freaking cool. And it has this air of mystery to it that ultimately leads to a horror element, you know, being forever trapped inside of this crystal ball. Sorry if I spoiled that, but I mean, if you're watching this, you already know. But the idea that, you know, the woman in black was powerful and Sardo was a fake, that's a very interesting angle to take for the character of Sardo, because this is the first time, I mean, obviously, you know, we're seeing the consequences of what happens when you trust Sardo with something that you're wanting to do with magic. But I need to really think about this. I don't know if there's any other episode where Sardo is like clearly defeated, like defeated forever, and there's no coming back from it. So that right there is a very scary element. The hatching, on the other hand, is more of like creepiness, not necessarily like, yes, obviously you can say that it's scary, but it's more of like, this is a very creepy episode. It's like, oh man, look how they're all moving in unison. And like, there's this really great air of mystery around this episode too, because you don't know what's going on until right at the halfway point. And that's kind of par for the course when it comes to all of the Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. Like usually the, you know, the small picture is delivered at the halfway point and the big picture, you know, is kind of delivered at the end, like the final payoff. I don't know, because even with analyzing both of these, I still feel like I'm just stalling. But the hatching and the super specs. I don't know. I really don't know. Between the two, which one would I rather watch? Which one would I most be entertained by? Okay. Okay. We've looked at story, we've looked at horror elements, we've looked at air of mystery. Now let's simply look at entertainment. The Super Specs has something that the hatching doesn't, and that's Sardo. It has Sardo. And the hatching is, in my opinion, one of the strongest stories in the entire series. Oh man. You know what? I'm just going to go with the hatching. The Super Specs almost had me. It almost had me, but the hatching has just this great air of mystery to it. Even though Super Specs has Sardo, it has this great air of mystery to it, and it's just so well executed. It's so well done. But it just barely wins by like a hair. It barely wins by like a hair, because both of them are great episodes. Okay, next up, I'm glad we're done with that. The Phone Police and the Shiny Red Bicycle. Okay, so between these two, I really do like the Phone Police. The idea that you can be thrown in jail, blah blah blah. I've already talked about all of that. Shiny Red Bicycle, on the other hand, is a really great ghost story, where, you know, the main character has to overcome something. And I love stories like that, where, you know, the main character has this weakness, has this thing about them that they need to overcome, and like if they don't overcome it, then, you know, it has disastrous consequences. I think that is better overall, and the Shiny Red Bicycle is a better overall episode than the Phone Police. So I'm going to go with the Shiny Red Bicycle. Okay, Watcher's Woods and Old Man Corcoran. I love Watcher's Woods. It's a great episode. Little silly at times, but Old Man Corcoran is the clear winner here. We're going to go through these pretty quickly now, because I feel like I've already given a pretty good analysis on everything. Old Man Corcoran has that ending that is just, in my opinion, one of the best endings of the entire series. You just can't go wrong with it. So I'm going to go with Old Man Corcoran. All right, the Dream Girl and the Water Demons. Both fantastic episodes, but between the two, I've always loved the Dream Girl, so I'm going to go with the Dream Girl on that one. One thing that I don't know if I mentioned this yet for the Dream Girl, but what is it about bowling alleys that is just so freaking cool? Is it just me? I love bowling alleys. I love everything about them. Like, there's so much. It's more than just nostalgia for me. I love all the sounds and the smells and just, I don't know, like there's something about it. And it's almost like when I watch the Dream Girl, I almost feel like I'm there, even though I'm not, obviously. I'm just watching an episode of a TV show. But I think that the characters are also more well-written. They're more solid. And all of the little clues that kind of hint at the end, they're just the right amount of subtle, although there's one that goes maybe a little bit too far. But yeah, like between those two, Dream Girl all the way. All right, Lonely Ghost and Mystical Mirror. Very interesting pairing, considering that they both have Amanda from The Lonely Ghost in it. But between these two, it's The Lonely Ghost for me. I've got to go with that. Mystical Mirror is a wonderful episode, one of my top favorites, but Lonely Ghost has it, definitely. All right, Nightly Neighbors and the Chameleons. This is no contest at all. Nightly Neighbors, I would definitely rather watch over the Chameleons, even though the Chameleons is a really good episode. So just got to go with that. The Vacant Lot and the Prom Queen. Now, this is a more interesting pairing, I think, than, than Nightly Neighbors and the Chameleons. So The Vacant Lot, one of my favorite episodes. Prom Queen, also one of my favorite episodes. Although I feel like in some of these spaces, I've kind of gone with nostalgia over story, and I definitely don't want to do that in this case. Between these two episodes, even though I love the Prom Queen with every bit of my being, The Vacant Lot, I think, is the overall better episode. So I'm going to go with The Vacant Lot on this one. And I know that might be blasphemy, but that's what I think. All right, now this one is an interesting one. The Captured Souls and the Ghastly Grinner. Okay, I feel like I've given an analysis on both of them. And between the two of them, if they said, hey, which one do you want to watch, the Captured Souls or the Ghastly Grinner? I think that there are moments in the Ghastly Grinner that feel a little bit disjointed and a little bit incomplete at times. Not the entire episode. The whole episode is very well done and very well put together. Although I feel the ending is a little bit rushed a little bit, and the Captured Souls kind of takes its time in kind of filling out everything that needs to be told within the confines of the story in a window of 24 minutes. So it could be blasphemy, but I'm going to go with the Captured Souls. All right, we are in the semifinals now, so this is where things are going to get difficult because we have The Hatching versus The Shiny Red Bicycle. Both episodes are fantastic, top rate in my opinion. But if I had to choose between The Hatching and The Shiny Red Bicycle, I think I would choose The Hatching. And the reason why is because it just has that air of mystery to it that I think is that, like, The Shiny Red Bicycle definitely has that, but it's more of a straightforward ghost story where definitely things happen that you don't anticipate happening. I'll definitely give it that. But The Hatching, between the two, personally, what would I rather watch? I would rather watch The Hatching over The Shiny Red Bicycle. So yeah, I'm going to go with that one. All right, Old Man Corcoran and the Dream Girl. Now this one is tough. Old Man Corcoran has a phenomenal ending, and so does the Dream Girl. So this is a very difficult one. I am leaning towards Old Man Corcoran, mainly because the Dream Girl's ending and Old Man Corcoran's ending are just as shocking. But there's something more shocking to me about Old Man Corcoran. The fact that, okay, we'll put it this way. Between the two, Old Man Corcoran gives fewer clues. Now, I think it's a total cop-out when something has a twist and there are no clues. I don't think that that's good storytelling at all. There needs to be something. Dream Girl, the clues are a little bit less subtle. And there's a couple of moments where you kind of almost get it. Old Man Corcoran, in my opinion, you would have to really do some leaps and bounds in your brain to get to that point where they finally reveal what the twist is. So I'm going to go with Old Man Corcoran. I think that overall the story is a little bit more well written, even though Dream Girl is very well crafted. Okay, Lonely Ghost versus the Nightly Neighbors. So this is also a difficult one because I love both of these episodes. Lonely Ghost has some of my favorite characters overall in the entire episode. Nightly Neighbors, of course, eats blood from the hospital. How many times have I said that in this video? It's just so much fun to say. What else is it? I'm afraid Lex has to rest. It's also one of my favorites. Okay, so Lonely Ghost versus Nightly Neighbors. Love both episodes. Both are top-notch, really well written, very well crafted. But I got to go with the Lonely Ghost on this one. This is definitely my favorite episode between the two of these. So we're gonna go with the Lonely Ghost. Okay, the Vacant Lot versus the Captured Souls. Now, I really do like the Captured Souls quite a bit, but you put it up against the Vacant Lot, it's going to lose. I'm sorry. The Vacant Lot is definitely the better episode, in my opinion, at least. Okay, so now we've got The Hatching and Old Man Corcoran. Between these two, which one is better? The Hatching and Old Man Corcoran. I would say that in terms of scariness, Old Man Corcoran has it over The Hatching because, first off, it takes place in a graveyard. That's already way scarier than a boarding school. You know, like most of the episode takes place in the graveyard. And as far as I remember, I don't think you see any other locations besides the two boys' house. It's the graveyard, unless you want to count the street where you see the kids riding their bicycles. But between these two, it's definitely Old Man Corcoran for me. I really like that episode a lot. It's difficult because The Hatching is also really good, is also a great episode. Okay. The Lonely Ghost versus the Vacant Lot. This has been an ongoing thing for me for years. Probably 20 years. Between the two episodes, they are so strong and so well done that it's difficult to pick. It's very difficult to pick. I don't want nostalgia to take the front seat on this one. So when it comes to The Lonely Ghost, you've got a very good story that's kind of the bedrock of this entire thing, okay? You've got sentimentality in both episodes, actually. So I definitely gravitate towards those. And when it comes to scariness, I think Lonely Ghost has it over the Vacant Lot. The Vacant Lot is more like, you know, there's a lesson to be learned here. There's definitely an element of horror that's going on underneath all of the surface here. And the idea that Catherine could be trapped in this situation, it's not really a physical place, but it's more of a situation where she would have to find another person, you know, boy or girl, whoever it is, that feels sorry for themselves, and then she can eventually trade for that person's life. There's definitely a good element of horror in that. It's a little bit more psychological, but The Lonely Ghost, I think, has it in terms of scariness because it really does have some legit moments that are scary. And it's got some good, you know, airs of mystery, like these things that are happening, and you're just like, what's happening right now? With the Vacant Lot, you kind of always know what's happening. You know, like you're not really left in the dark too much. With The Lonely Ghost, you don't really know what's going on at any particular moment, and whatever does happen, it's kind of like, oh, here's another new element of the story that's happening. And then also, the ending is, in my opinion, a very good ending. If you pay really close attention, really close attention, you might figure out the ending, but it still is pretty surprising, even for me, because the clues that lead up to the ending are not as obvious, at least in my opinion. Okay, so between the two of these, Old Man Corcoran and The Lonely Ghost, at this point, you're probably wondering which of these two is my favorite Are You Afraid of the Dark episode? It really could be either one. I hope I wasn't too obvious in kind of letting that through. But between these two, I feel like I've already given plenty of analysis on both episodes, but it is indeed The Lonely Ghost. The Lonely Ghost is my favorite of all time Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. Now, one thing I will say about this, even though this is the first time I've ever done a bracket for this show. I've always wanted to do it. But one thing I will say about this is that most of these episodes are very strong contenders to be within the top 5 and 10 greatest episodes of the entire series. Some of them that got eliminated early on does not mean that they were bad episodes by any means. It just means that they were put up against other really great episodes. And then some other ones, obviously, like looking back on it, the Old Man Corcoran and Badge, that's just not fair. Like, it's Old Man Corcoran all day long. What went up against the Manaha? I don't remember in the... the Vacant Lot. The Vacant Lot. The one that made it to the semifinals is up against, in my opinion, the worst episode of everything that they've made. Like, it's the worst episode of the entire, not just series, but the entire franchise of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But, you know, you've got C7 and Locker 22. Both of them are really great episodes. So it's interesting to see how these kind of all unfold. And I knew early on that it was going to be The Hatching, Old Man Corcoran, Lonely Ghost, and The Vacant Lot. I knew it was going to get down to those, but it was interesting and fun to see what led up to those two happening. So very interesting. And I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's different from, my typical graphic design stuff, but I enjoy talking about other things beyond that, especially things that, inspire a lot of my graphic design work. So hopefully this didn't put you off of my channel too much. And I try to not do this, too often, like something every now and then to kind of change things up a little bit. But anyway, if you are at all interested in the rest of my channel, I do a lot of graphic design stuff where I do Photoshop and Illustrator tutorials, and also creating different posters. I do a lot of Swiss design stuff, a lot of vintage type of looking stuff and everything. So definitely check out the rest of my channel if you haven't already done so. Please make sure you are subscribed to support the channel. That really does help me out quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.